Good morning, YouTube. As you can see by the pile of hardware here in front of me, I'm working on hardware today, or at least this morning. However, that's not what this video is about. This is a whole different type of video than I've done up till now, and I've given it a lot of thought of just what I'm going to say and what I want to try to get across. So bear with me, and I'm going to film a bunch, and I'll edit out a bunch more. But basically, this is a story or a video about a whole bunch of people who knew right up front there was absolutely nothing in it for them except the satisfaction of being involved, who all as a group got together and helped out a kid who would have been fine had nobody done anything. But I think in the end, we're all a lot better because a whole bunch of people did. And it all starts with a cell phone. So, let me get out of the window a little bit. I was going to come out here where the story began and see how quick we can get through this, and hopefully you'll get a kick out of it. I do. So, anyway, back in October of last year, I stopped in this dirt parking lot, and just stopped here for a quick lunch and parked the old rig right back there and proceeded to eat my lunch. And as I was just about ready to leave, I turned around, and somewhere in the vicinity of right there-ish, I happened to see something shiny. We're going to jump back in the truck where it's a little bit quieter. That's better. So anyway, saw something shiny on the ground, and sure enough, it was a cell phone. And I went, oh. Based on the picture that was on the opening screen, and I'll put it up right here. It looked like it to me that it might belong to an older woman, and it might have been a traveling person who, because of where this lot is, this is where on the weekends this thing's full of people selling, hats and flags and burritos and belts and you name it, all kinds of crap up and down the road here. And I thought, well, this is somebody that was traveling. I'll bet there's a whole bunch of pictures on this phone and yada yada. That was my thoughts. And so I started trying all these methods online, nothing. Anyway, I picked up this cell phone because that's what I do. And I was amazed that I found out later how long it had been there or been somewhere. It powered on for a minute, just barely had enough battery to power on and prove that it still worked. And then the battery died. So I was kind of stalled there for a minute. I don't have an iPhone charger. But again, my son mentioned, well, hey, you can charge those with the magnetic charger, the one you just lay it on there. So that's what I ended up doing, and got it fully charged. I looked online and I found out that there is a personal information or emergency contact, I'm not sure what you'd call it, place on an iPhone that you can fill out, and even when the phone's locked, somebody can, if they try to access it and they don't have the code, they can still hit that and get a way to get a hold of you. Well, unfortunately, Zach never filled that up or filled that in. So I couldn't do that. And I looked online and I found a whole bunch of other places that told different ways to get into an iPhone, different little back doors and whatnot. And I think they're all bull. None of them worked. And I didn't want to put in the code too many times, or, I didn't want to try guessing at a code, because this is my test. I did learn that if you put the code in too many times wrong, that at some point it will erase the data on the phone, because it figures out that you're trying to break into the phone. Perfect. So I was kind of at a loss, so I made up a post, and it'll be, well, here. Put it on Facebook, on my page, and on a couple of the groups I belong to in the area, and said, here's the picture off the front of the phone or off the home screen. Does anybody know these guys? And nobody did. So then, of course, you know, every kind of advice under the sun of people looking up on Google exactly the same way I did and saying, did you try this? Did you try that? And yes, I did try all those things, and no, they didn't work. But we were getting somewhere. Didn't seem like it at the time. But all of a sudden, I noticed that the posts started getting shared. And I've had posts shared, lots of them. I've never had a post that shared over 400 times in the course of 2 to 3 days. And I figured out that when the groups that I had posted it to, a couple of them are pretty good size, and they had shared it into the group, or I shared it to the group, and when people were sharing from that group out all over the country, then it showed up as shares on my page. Didn't know that. Learned something new every day. So after a few days, and I had continued trying different things, I went to a couple of Verizon stores, and they were anywhere from no help at all to a couple of them outright nasty jerks. The one guy told me that I could be prosecuted for trying to find this guy. What a jerk. Told me to throw the phone away, or better yet, bring it in and give it to him and he'd throw it away. Just, you know, his whole personality and attitude, I wasn't impressed. So I was actually pretty pissed. And I went back onto my page and, you know, read the comments for the day, and I said, this is what happened when I talked to Verizon.
Well, let me tell you, you walk into a Verizon store, I'm just glad I didn't walk in with a phone. They were jerks. They weren't even polite. The closest, I got one guy that was somewhat polite, because I tried 3 different stores, because that's just how I am. And I drive for work, so I drive by all this stuff. Anyway, one guy was somewhat decent, and his recommendation, throw it away. Nobody's going to help you. You're never going to get in it. There's no way. Forget it. Well, that pissed me off. Made me even more determined that I wanted to find this. And so I made mention on the posts that I had been to the store and they were jerks, and etc.
Well, that had been shared all across the country, all up into Canada. I think it went to Mexico. I even think it went overseas, which I don't understand, but hey, what the hell? Somehow we hit probably a mid to upper level manager at Verizon read the comment about how Verizon's people were jerks to me. And one of them, and I have looked and looked and looked trying to find the lady's name, but I can't. So she's welcome to comment should she happen to see this. Anyway, she saw the comments about Verizon, and she sent me a message and said, they can't help you, but I can. And told me who she was and what her position was, and asked for the serial number off the phone. So once she had that, it was just a matter of typing into her computer on her desk, and boom. She did. She had the owner. And it ended up, the owner of the phone was a man who lived in Chicago, and the phone had been given to his son when he was in high school, but it was still on his account. And I got her the serial number. That's how she found the guy. She was able to look up the ownership of that serial number phone. She reached out as Verizon, and I think the guy honestly thought this was a really well orchestrated scam, but he agreed to do a conference call with me, with her. She introduced us, she left, and I explained that I was trying to get his son his phone back. And I think even then, he really didn't believe it. He couldn't believe especially with the story of all the people that had come together. Over 500 people altogether had shared it, discussed it, recommended it, talked about it, and it was just a stupid cell phone. But it was 500 people who all tried to help for no reason than to try to help. And a few days later, well, a day later, actually later that day, I think, my phone rings, and it's a young man named Zach who happened to be at that time living in Tucson, just south of us a little ways, and sounded like a nice kid, and we hit it off right away. The problem is, that was back in October. It's now May, although we did end up meeting in April the 30th, but it was still April. So the problem we had was, even though it's only 2 hours away, it's just a cell phone. Zach had another phone that he had picked up to replace the one that was lost, and he really only needed it for some contacts that were lost and for the pictures that were on it, of which I guess there were quite a few. So anyway, it wasn't an emergency. It was just, you know, we went through so much, we wanted to get it back to him. And so anyway, long story short, here a week ago, I get the text from Zach saying he's on his way to Phoenix for the weekend for his birthday. And aside from the fact that we have now talked several times and have kind of become friends, I wished him a happy birthday and said, we're going to make this work. And so, after all this time and all these posts and all this sharing and all the grief and frustration, which really wasn't that much, Zach and I finally end up in a parking lot in Scottsdale where, and I was able to give him back the phone. We stood and chatted for about 20 minutes or so, and off he went to Tucson. So what's the moral of the story is a whole lot of people with absolutely no horse in the race, I guess you'd say. They had nothing to gain, but they also had nothing to lose by just being good people. They didn't do it because they had to. They didn't do it because there was any payback, there was any chance of a payback, no recognition. They just did it to be good people. So I guess that's the message of this video. There are good people. People who will do things for other people that they don't know for no other reason than just to be good people and help somebody who needs just a little help. Not buy them a new car, but share a post. It only took them a second. And yes, it took 2-3 weeks altogether, but it's not like I sat in front of a computer for 2 or 3 weeks trying to find this guy. It took 5 minutes out of my day or night, whatever, about a dozen times. So an hour. And I spent more time sitting in the parking lot waiting for him because he was stuck in traffic and I wasn't leaving until we got together. I spent more time in that parking lot waiting for him to give the phone back than I probably spent during the entire project. So when you see a post for a lost dog, or you see a post for a lost cell phone or lost car keys, it takes you 3 seconds max. You don't even have to say anything. You can just click share. Share it to your group, share it to your page, share it to wherever you might be allowed to. And who knows? Maybe you'll help a kid find the pictures that he had thought were lost forever on a cell phone that he lost forever. And it took no effort. So that's my video. So anyway, I'm Papa J. This was a non-Papa J's Shop, Papa J's Shop video. Have a great day.